is RB2. Who were some players we expect to break out this season? And a whole lot more with Twitter Tuesday. Plus, the USA Today coaches poll comes out. Tennessee, where are you? All that and more here on this Twitter Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, welcome into it. This is Locked On Vols, your Tennessee Volunteers podcast, your go-to Tennessee Volunteers podcast each and every day. So glad that you took the time to hang out with me here today and make Locked On Vols your first listen, your first watch on YouTube, and, of course, wherever you find your podcast. I'm Eric Cain, your host, and you can find me on Twitter at _Cainer and at Locked On Vols. I write for the rival site covering the University of Tennessee. That's VolQuest.com. I do radio each morning on 99.1 The Sports Animal. And, of course, I'm your host here of Locked On Vols. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks so much for checking us out. Hope you stay for more. This is something we do each and every week called Twitter Tuesday, when you submit questions, and I do my best to answer them to the best of my ability. So we're going to do that here in segment number 1. In segment 2, Rodney Garner took the podium yesterday following practice number 7 on Monday, and had some interesting stuff we're going to see and hear from Rodney Gardner here on today's show. And then finally, we'll get into that USA Today's coaches poll and discuss why Tennessee didn't make it, but who did make it from the SEC, and of course, that's on Tennessee's schedule. So got a busy show. Let's go ahead and get into it. This is Locked On Vols. We head over to the YouTube channel where, of course, you can submit Twitter Tuesday questions each and every day. And Mark chimes in for Twitter Tuesday. What are the chances that Nico gets Carnell Tate or Francis to flip to the Vols before signing day? Well, it's always possible, especially if you're winning, especially when you have a 5-star quarterback to the caliber of Nico Iamaleava. We'll have to check and see how Miami does on the field this year. We'll have to check and see. Of course, we'll know how Ohio State will do. But more so than anything, in regards to flipping, like, you need to look for teams that are pretty unstable right now. Like Miami's starting over. They've got things going with the NIL. There's not going to be a coaching change there. There's not going to be a coaching change at the University at Ohio State, obviously. But Florida State, there could be, big Lucas Simmons, 4-star offensive tackle that Tennessee missed out on. That would be the one that I would watch, for, a flipping in terms of in this regard. Plus, Carnell Tate's got a name, image, likeness package. Francis has a huge NIL package. And this is something I'm curious to see. And maybe we don't have the answer to it yet, but how does that affect traditional recruiting in terms of flipping? We see all the time guys flip in terms of all the way up to the 48 hours leading up to National Signing Day. That's why we love National Signing Day so much. So I'm intrigued to see kind of how name, image, and likeness affects that part of recruiting as well. So I would say probably not for those two, but that does not mean that others won't flip to the University of Tennessee as we continue to venture on throughout the season. Mark, appreciate your time there. We'll go to Chris, who chimed in. Several freshmen have been doing media interviews, nothing canned. This is only the second practice of the year. This was last week. I'm pulling this question and bringing it to today's podcast. Do you think Coach Josh Heupel's not only working football, but football skill development, but also NIL development by doing so, such as if you play here, you'll not only get every on-the-field opportunity you earn, but an opportunity to sell and build your brand that you earn as well? Chris goes on to say a bunch of other stuff, but for time's sake, I'm just going to stop right there. Really, really good question, and I've never really thought of it in that regard. It could be perceived as that. Certainly, it could be a benefit towards shaping yourself, modeling yourself, kind of promoting yourself for NIL purposes. But I can tell you this, the purpose behind seeing all these freshmen talk, the purpose behind seeing all these individuals talk this early in camp is because you're not going to hear from them much as the season rolls on. Like, how many times are we going to hear from Addison Nichols? He's going to be a backup offensive lineman. How many times are we going to hear from Messiah Reddick or from Jason Jenkins or from some of these other, freshmen who have spoken? Now, we might hear from Squirrel, depending on how much he plays and depending on the plays that he makes. But we're not going to hear from Taven Jackson. Taven Jackson's going to be the third-string quarterback this year as a true freshman. So that's the purpose of getting all these guys out in front of the media. You heard from the ones that were here in spring practice as well, and you hear from them in camp because we're not going to hear from them at all throughout the season for the most part. And I mean, on Monday afternoon as well, we talked to Kerrod Garland. How many times will the defensive lineman Kerrod Garland speak to the media? Probably not many times. His brother, Pat Garland, who's a reserve linebacker, probably not going to talk to him much either. That's the purpose behind getting all these guys out in front of the media and stuff like that here in spring practice. And of course, right now, in camp. I like that Josh Heupel does that. Jeremy Pruitt didn't do that. To my knowledge, Butch Jones didn't do a whole lot of that. I do like that Josh Heupel does do that because we get to talk to these guys. We remember them and talk to them during the recruiting process, and sometimes we don't talk to them again here on campus or maybe until their junior or senior year. So it's good to kind of hear from them before the season gets truly underway. Great question there, Chris. Really do appreciate that. We will go on now to Cole, and Cole asks, let's see here. The eligibility of Linjay Dixon looked like as he was already transferred once, this being his second time. And by the way, love your show and listen every single day. Man, appreciate it. That means more to me than you will ever know. To my understanding, this is how it works. Linjay Dixon graduated from Clemson in December. He used his graduate transfer to go to West Virginia, and then his one-time transfer to come to the University of Tennessee. To my knowledge, eligibility will not be an issue. In fact, he's got 2 years of eligibility, and he should be cleared and ready. I don't think he's cleared yet, but he should be ready to roll and be eligible for this season upcoming. Now, you're not supposed to transfer twice in an offseason. That's typically not supposed to happen. But Kamal Hadden did last year. And look, he played a lot for Tennessee last year, played in parts. So there's not supposed to be an eligibility issue with Linjay Dixon. We'll continue to monitor that. But that's kind of how that works right there. Cole, really appreciate the time sending in a question. We'll go to Big C. Hey, Eric, love the podcast. Was wondering what players you think might come out of nowhere and have a breakout season for the Vols this year. Keep up the great work. Oh, yeah, good question. There's going to be guys that we don't even think about right now that will break out. I thought Cedric Tillman would have a role last year. Didn't see that coming, what he ended up doing. Didn't think Theo Jackson would play a factor in it at all, so we'll see. They can also be veterans that have played some that just really haven't done anything. How about Princeton Fan on offense? I think that he's going to – I really do believe he's going to have a bigger role in the passing game. We'll see. On the defensive line, a guy we're going to hear Rodney Garner talk about here in just a moment is Bryson Easton. I think he'll play a lot, and you might see some plays made by Bryson Easton. I'm not going to say Ramel Keaton in this conversation. I'm not going to say Jimmy Holiday in this conversation. I don't know. That's why this is such a good. That's why it's such a good question. We'll see, right? But I would say those two, maybe Princeton Fan on the offensive end in terms of pass catching. And then I would say Bryson Easton on the defensive line because, Bryson Easton might not have 10 sacks, but he's going to be a guy that plays a lot this year, in my opinion. And, of course, we'll hear from Rodney Gardner here in just one moment. Big C, appreciate the question there. Let's go to Braden. Braden wants to know, if Jalen Rod isn't ready to go in week 1, who do you see taking the RB2 role against Ball State? Another good question. I think Jalen Rod will be fine. It was to my understanding, and I heard this even before camp began, that he was going to be banged up a little bit to start camp. But it shouldn't be a long-term issue. So we'll see. We're halfway through August right now, almost halfway through camp. So we'll see what happens there and how he progresses. But I think he'll be ready. But if not, it would likely be, in my opinion, it's got to be Linjay Dixon, right? How much does he have of the offense to that point? Does he have a general idea? Does he have a grasp? Does he have a good handle on the offense? If so, you want that experience to be the guy getting the second carries behind Jabari Small. You want that experience to be the guy catching passes out of the backfield. So while the freshman and Justin Williams-Thomas and Dylan Sampson continue to come along, if he's got the playbook, my answer would be Linjay Dixon. If not, Justin Williams-Thomas. Something to monitor there. One more from Braden. In week 2, who do we need to root for? Kentucky and Florida matchup. Which team would we rather get the momentum from that win? Oh gosh, I don't know, man. I like chaos, and though Kentucky's a better football team than Florida this year, anytime Kentucky beats Florida, that's chaos, right? So I don't know. As a Tennessee fan, I don't know if you're necessarily rooting for anybody in that regard, but to each his own. I like chaos, and though Kentucky's a better football team, I think it'd be pretty cool to see Kentucky beat Florida again. And that game is going to be in Florida, where they've won twice in the last 5 trips down there. I believe that game's in Florida. But nonetheless, that's kind of how I view that. We'll move on to Trevor. And Trevor wants to know, I know he's being overshadowed with the current quarterbacks and Nico, but how is Taven Jackson doing so far? He went to high school down the road from me, so I'm hoping he plays at some point at Tennessee. Yeah, good question, man. Haven't heard a lot from Taven Jackson in camp right now, but remember, by the time you're listening to this, the team is scrimmaging, and we're going to hear from Josh Heupel after the scrimmage on Tuesday. So Josh Heupel will take the time and talk about the players, the quarterbacks in particular, and all 3 quarterbacks will play. Taven Jackson will get a lot of run. in the scrimmage coming up today on Tuesday. So we'll know more after today. And DM me and remind me to touch base on this either tomorrow or at some point this week if I don't. But tomorrow or today rather will be a great opportunity to ask that question. I know they were high on him during the spring and said that he was mature beyond his age. So, but haven't heard much on him during camp just simply because there's been so much other stuff going on. All right, we will continue on with the Locked On Vols Twitter account now, heading to that DM account, and we'll check in with Sawyer. Sawyer wants to know, my question isn't about the Vols, but about your football when you played. I believe I heard you say you played at Carson Newman. That's true. Did you ever play against my alma mater, the University of North Alabama? I'm told that UNA and Carson Newman used to have a fierce history. Oh, yeah. I never played against North Alabama. We would see them, except they were never scheduled in an out-of-conference game when I was there, but Carson Newman used to play North Alabama all the time in the playoffs, all the time. You know, one of those guys, you know, beating up on the other to go to the semifinals or the quarterfinals or sometimes even the national championship. Big-time fierce rivalry at the University of North Alabama and, of course, Carson Newman. So I never played them. The farthest I ever went in the playoffs were the quarterfinals, essentially the Elite Eight, but regrettably, Carson Newman is not what they used to be in terms of being a force at Division II. Of course, won multiple national championships at the NAI level, played for numerous national championships at the D2 level, but really since 2007, 2008, Carson Newman's been a solid program, but not what it used to be. But Sawyer, that's really, really cool there. Appreciate you for sharing. And then finally, we'll end up here for Twitter Tuesday today. Football time in Tennessee. Mailbag question. Shandavian Bradley, is he going to be a part of the basketball team? If so, what does he bring to the hardwood? Well, he is certainly marketing himself on social media as if he will get that opportunity. And I think I saw a tweet from him last week saying that he will get that opportunity if he so chooses. So I'm not really sure right now. And honestly, I cover football recruiting. I have no clue about Shandavian Bradley on the basketball court, but I can tell you this, highly rated 4-star, one of the top 50 players in the country. He's got good size. He's limber. He can jump. He can jump out of the gym, essentially, because I've seen it on tape for football. So the athletic ability, good around the rim, good rebounder. I don't know about a shot or anything. And that's always kind of curious to see if you can be a dual sport athlete. A lot of times kids come into Tennessee with the thought that they've been told they can. And I'm not saying that, I know Jeremy Pruitt told Trayvon Flowers he couldn't, but I'm not saying that that's always the case. But we'll see exactly if that does happen. But football will be his number one priority without a doubt. And if given the opportunity to play basketball, he'll certainly be a walk-on in that regard. All right, guys, great questions. Thank you so much for sending them in every single Tuesday right here on Locked On Vols. When you take over the show, it is Mailbag Edition here on Twitter Tuesday. Coming up next, Rodney Garner. Some interesting comments when he met with the media on some players that we might not even be on our radar right now. And one quote that I love that we're going to play on his coaching style. Really, really good stuff. That coming up here next on Locked On Vols. But as you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small businesses fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people that you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the network's largest professional network of 810 million people. Let me say that one more time. 810 million people. All right, then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so that the network can help find you the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and then ultimately hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn number one in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that you want to talk to faster. Did you know that every single week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions, they do apply. Welcome back into Locked On Vols, your Tuesday edition. Big thanks again for sending all those mailbag questions in. Really, really do appreciate that. If you missed it, shoot me a DM. I'll try to bookmark it, or I might bring it onto the show if it kind of goes along with the conversation that I'm having. But really, really do appreciate that, guys, each and every week. Mailbag, Twitter Tuesday, ask, and I'll do my best to answer. So big thanks to Mark, Chris, Cole, Big C, Braden, Trevor, Sawyer, and Football Time in Tennessee for participating in this week's edition. All right, Rodney Garner, veteran coach around the SEC, been coaching 25 plus years in the Southeastern Conference, has a reputation being really, really hard on his players, old school. That doesn't bother me whatsoever. I know that, especially in today's society, it can bother a lot of people, but for the most part, all the defensive linemen know that Rodney Gardner loves him. And he was asked on that, his coaching style and how it takes, players sometimes a while to kind of buy into what he's saying and kind of buying into knowing that, they love that he loves them and he just wants them to be the best. Rodney Garner was asked about that. Listen to this response, about 2 minutes long, but really, really riveting stuff here from Rodney Garner on how he coaches and why he coaches the way that he coaches. Here's Tennessee's defensive line coach.
Well, like I tried to explain to the guys, all I want from my players, I just want them to be the best version of them. And obviously, when they're in that moment, it may not seem that way. It was just like I called him up today after practice. I'm coaching Tyree. I'm telling him something out there on the field, and he gives you that look like whatever. And I'm like, dude, man, I just want you to be the best version of you, all right? When we get this look right here, this is what we're supposed to do, right? Am I right? Well, you didn't do it. You know what? When we go up there and turn the film on, you know what? You didn't do it. All right? So, so that is not, I think so many times, that they take it personal. And, and I try to tell them, I could be probably a little bit aggressive. I can probably be a little brutal. I may not say it in the nicest way, but I try to tell them, don't take it the tone. Receive the message. You know what I'm saying? And take that aggression. That's just me wanting to win. That's just me wanting you to be better. At times, at the end of the day, though, 99% of my guys, they come back and they love me. At that moment right now, they don't like me, which is sort of like being a parent. Your kids don't like you when you raise them, but when they get old, they love you and they appreciate everything you did for them. That's what we're hoping. That's going the same thing that's going to transpire here. That these guys are going to love me. That they're going to bring their wives and their kids back to see me. I'm going to be playing with their kids like they're my grandkids. So that's what it's all about. And and just getting them to understand, I want what's best for them. I want them to be the best version of themselves, so we can be the best version of a Tennessee D-line, and then we can be the best version of a Tennessee football team. That's all I want.
Really, really awesome stuff there. I love that response from Rodney Garner, just saying he wants everybody to be the best person that they can be, the best you that you can be. And 99% of the players come back and they love him, and he plays with their kids like he's their grandkids. And I mean, you've heard that from a lot of Tennessee's defensive linemen last year and already this year. And I think it speaks volumes that whenever Rodney Garner is here at the University of Tennessee, some of his former players from Auburn come over here on campus to hang out and watch practice and sit in on meetings because Rodney Gardner means that much to them. Moving on, about Tyler Barron. How is he adapting? How is he coming around? What's he looking like in camp so far? Tennessee needs him. Tennessee needs him in a big way. Here's Rodney Gardner on Tennessee's senior defensive end, Tyler Barron.
Well, I do think Tyler has gotten better. He's been more consistent. I would say starting this spring, he's practiced more than he's ever practiced before. So, you would think that by being out there on the field and working every day, then that you're going to improve. And we've seen improvement from him. And he's got to continue to improve on the little things. When we're sitting there watching the film, if you're going to be a true edge rusher, you can't put two hands on the tackle. I mean, he's got to learn to rush with one hand and be able to flip his hips and be able to turn the corner. He's got to stop making himself short by turning and putting two hands on the guy. Now he's not creating any pass rush. So he's got to work on the little things to get better and to take his game to that next level. But he is buying into it. He's being more coachable. I'm looking forward to him continuing to improve.
Tyler Barron now buying into the program, being on the practice field much more than he ever has. That's key, and that's something I've harped on about Tyler Barron. He's got to play more snaps, and it looks like he's off and running in that regard. Some names that we might not have even been on our radars coming into camp. One of these names was on my radar because I've been hearing some chirping really dating back to last fall about this young man who was a redshirt last year. Heard a lot about him in spring. And I think this guy's going to, and we mentioned him in segment one, it's Bryson Easton. I think this guy's going to play a role and be in the rotation for Tennessee this year. Now, will he have 5-10 sacks? I doubt it, but will he be a guy that's on the field and playing an awful lot? I think so. Here's Rodney Garner on the progression of Bryson Easton on the road that he's been traveling to get from, where he is, from linebacker to DN, now the tackle, from Memphis, Tennessee, all the way to Knoxville. Here is Rodney Garner on one of the Memphis trio, the Memphis three, Bryson Easton.
Easton has a lot of talent. He's a very gifted guy. He came here as a linebacker, and then I think they moved him. I don't know if it's freshman year that they moved him to DN or not, but I know last year we put him at defensive end, and now obviously he's moved closer to the ball. He's a big man. He's an athletic big man, but he's got to embrace, that role. And obviously the closer you get to the ball, the more physical, demanding it is to play in there, So I think he's adapting to it. It's something that, we just got to keep force feeding him right now. But hopefully he sees that he could be a guy. I mean, he really could be a guy. When you start looking at the intangible things that you look at from that position, he has the body type, he has initial quickness, he has short area quickness, he has balance and body control, he's explosive. He has all the tools. Now he has to embrace it from a mentality standpoint and from a heart standpoint and be willing to strain to put himself in position to be a great player.
And if Tennessee can count on Bryson Easton to play a role this season, I think that just kind of goes to show you that there's a little bit more depth than what we thought maybe coming into the season, but ultimately they need to get better at the top as well. One more guy that can maybe help with that. This guy was not on my radar. Now, I talked to an assistant coach at one point in time off the record last football season, and he told me that they were really, really impressed with Bryson Easton and this next guy. They were red shirts. They were trying to get them into some of those games at the end of the year to, before, you can play 4 and still red shirt 4 games. He mentioned Bryson Easton, which I could get because, again, like what Rodney Garner was just talking about, big athletic man. He was a highly rated 4-star prospect coming out of high school. I got that. This next one was a guy that was also a 4-star, but it's been forgotten in my eyes and really hadn't been a factor whatsoever in his 2 years so far on the defensive line. It's Dominique Bailey. When we talk about maybe being deeper than what we ever imagined this Tennessee defensive line being right now, it's because guys starting to come along and starting to get it and starting to progress. Guys like Dominique Bailey. Listen to this. This is Rodney Gardner on Tennessee defensive lineman Dominique Bailey and the strides that he's taken over the past year and especially in fall camp.
Well, I do, and I said this in our staff meeting the other day, and I said it in my position meeting this morning. If we had to vote on who was probably the most improved guy in that room, it would definitely be Dominique Bailey. And he's gotten better. I mean, he really has, and he's flashed, and he's shown that he's going to have an opportunity to help this team. And the thing that, I was a little bit worried about out there today, I give him that compliment in the meeting, and I thought in practice when he started out, and I started seeing the old Dom. And I'm like, man, we can't do that. We can't play yo-yo. We can't be up and down. We need to be consistently, climbing that mountain. But, from what he's shown the previous, and he did pick it up later part of the practice, but the previous 6 practices, he put himself in a position that we think that he's going to have an opportunity to help this team. So obviously he's done a really good job during the offseason. I think his body's changed. I think his mentality's changed. He's a little bit more talented than I thought, and maybe that's what just gaining the strength, with the weight program and the maturity and all that, and maybe him just getting more comfortable in the system that we're running to. He's been able to show and flash a lot more.
So again, if Tennessee can count on guys like Bryson Easton and Dominique Bailey to help fill in the gaps, take up some snaps where they were just complete non-factors a season ago, I think that goes to show you the true testament of Rodney Gardner, his development year over year in terms of getting better. So maybe this defensive line will be a little bit deeper than what we thought. We'll see. We talk about trying to have depth, but it's got to be good competition. It's got to be good depth in order to feel good about it heading into the football season. Great stuff there from Rodney Garner. All right, we got a final segment left, and we're going to discuss the USA Today coaches poll. Tennessee, obviously by now, was not ranked in the first edition of the coaches poll. But who was and how close was Tennessee? Should Tennessee be in these rankings? We'll discuss when Locked On Vols returns. All right, so we got the USA Today AFCA coaches poll, the first of the season. And again, not every coach coaches in this. A lot of times it's the SID. A lot of times coaches will they'll vote in this and kind of just blow it off and not take it seriously. The coaches poll, in my opinion, is not what the coaches poll used to be. The coaches poll used to be taken, very literally, because I think people took it seriously. Nowadays, I don't think people take it seriously that much. Now, on the flip side of this, the AP Top 25 poll, sometimes there are media personnel in this market that don't watch college football that have a vote. I will say that right now, and that's the same for any market. I'm not just trying to single out Knoxville right now, but nonetheless, here's what the AP Top 25 looks like from the coaches poll that came out yesterday. Of course, at the top, I'm not going to read you all 25, but I'll read you the top 10 here. You got Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia at the top. No shockers there. The reigning national champions coming in third. Clemson up to number 4, Notre Dame at 5, and Michigan at 6. You got Texas A&M at number 7, Utah at 8, Oklahoma at 9, and Baylor at number 10. That is your top 10. What about SEC teams that were voted into the AP Top 25 by the coaches? Well, the inaugural rankings for the class or for the 2022 season, there are 7 teams from the Southeastern Conference that made the poll. As I just mentioned, Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M all in the top 10. Alabama's 1, Georgia's 2, and Texas A&M is at number 3. Or excuse me, Georgia is at 3, and Texas A&M is at number 7. Those are just the top 3 teams from the SEC. At number 21, you have Kentucky. At 23, you have Arkansas, and at 24, you have Ole Miss. There are 6 teams, not 7, 6 teams from the SEC that were voted inside the top 25 by the coaches. Alabama at 1, Georgia at 3, A&M at 7, Kentucky at 21, Arkansas at 23, and Ole Miss at 24. The third team out, if you want to look at it that way, the third team that's received the most votes that did not make the top 25 was Tennessee. Tennessee received votes, 163 of them to be exact, but just missed out on the top 25. Iowa received the most votes without making it, 248. Penn State received the second most votes, 246, that were left just out. All right, so you've got Tennessee at 163, BYU at 152, LSU at 143, Auburn at 98, Central Florida at 55, North Carolina at 34. So there's a lot of teams just on the outside looking in, Tennessee included, that did not make the top 25. Tennessee will be voted in terms of the AP Top 25 whenever that comes out. I can almost guarantee it. They'll be a top 25 team. I think anywhere probably from about 20 to 25, maybe 18 to 24. We'll have to see there. But Kentucky is at 21. As we mentioned, that's not going to help Tennessee fans out at all. Tennessee fans are not going to like that. Arkansas is at 23. Ole Miss is at 24. I mean, I don't think Ole Miss should be in this ranking. I really don't. Not whatsoever. Kentucky, okay, there's a conversation there. I get it. I understand why they are there. Tennessee's opponents and where they're at in this rankings. Week 2, Pittsburgh comes in at number 16 in this poll. Week 7, Alabama, of course, is the top team in the poll. Week 9, Kentucky's number 21 in the poll. And week 10 is Georgia, number 3 in the poll. So far, right now in the first edition of the coaches poll, right here in the preseason, Tennessee has 4 opponents who are ranked that it will face. And Pitt, Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia. Remember, Tennessee doesn't play Arkansas this year. Tennessee doesn't play Ole Miss this year. How many other teams will be ranked by season's end? Can South Carolina jump in there? Can Tennessee jump in there potentially? Will LSU jump in there? Will Florida jump in there? We'll have to find out. We'll see right now. But right now, Tennessee has 4 opponents on the schedule that it will play that is ranked inside the top 25 poll. So, we'll see. Again, I wouldn't get up in arms over this. I wouldn't make this a big deal. A lot of these coaches don't take it even seriously. I do expect personally that Tennessee will be ranked inside the AP Top 25 when that comes out for the first edition, but it might be just getting in, maybe 22 to 25 or somewhere around there. So should Tennessee be in the top 25? It's not, according to the coaches, the first installment. We'll see what the AP says here in, I don't know when that comes out, maybe a matter of days, maybe a matter of weeks. I don't know. We will see what happens, but Overall, I think Ole Miss shouldn't be in there. Houston was at number 25. I don't think it should be in there. And then you got to throw Cincinnati a bone because it was in the college football playoff last year. It comes in at number 22. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Vols. We had a full show. We had Twitter Tuesday in segment 1. We heard from Rodney Gardner in segment 2. A lot of good stuff there. And then we briefly went over the USA Today AFCA coaches poll, the first installment that saw 6 teams from the SEC ranked, Tennessee not included, and 4 of Tennessee's opponents ranked inside that top 25. Guys, thank you so much as always. Really, really great stuff. Tomorrow, we will come back and we will recap everything we know from Tennessee's scrimmage number 1 of fall camp. That is coming up tomorrow on Locked On Vols. Locked On Vols, your first listen, your first watch every single day, wherever you find your podcast and on YouTube. Please follow, subscribe to the channel, help it grow. We're trying to get 3,000 by football season and ultimately 5,000 by the end of football season. We still got a ways to go to get 3,000. We're below 500, but I still do believe over the next month we can get there. So subscribe on YouTube and make Locked On SEC your second listen behind Locked On Vols, which is your first listen each and every day. Guys, thanks so much. Hey, same time, same place. Pull up a chair. Let's do it again tomorrow. This is Locked On Vols.